Hello, welcome to part 2. Since the last time we were working on this thing and one of my scarf joints on the other side popped, so I took a 3/8 piece of pine and I laminated the whole inside of this one just to be safe. And then on the other side I went ahead and ripped me a 1x2 out of a 14-foot 2x4 so I didn't have a scarf joint. But just to make everything even, I went ahead and put my 3/8 laminate on the inside of that, and then I got all the clamps off the top of the deck, and I just got to trim that edge. That'll be the next thing. Okay, we got the bottom of the boat on there. Like I say, I left it a little long. I rough cut it with my I bought one of these Japanese hand saws, and it's real thin curve, razor sharp, and it cuts on the back pull. Really a slick little saw that I didn't want to buy in the first place, but I wish I'd have bought it years ago. And then once you do your rough cut, you just hit this edge with a little plane. I just got a little cobalt plane. That's about the first thing that's worked great on is the end grain. So we got this all on and getting ready to start on my side panels. Okay, as you well know, when you're cutting these boards, they're going to have a little bit of a radius to it, I'm assuming. So I got blocks on the bottom to get my board, I don't know, about a 1/2 inch or so of excess on the top. And then I'm just going to give myself a pencil line on the bottom, and then so I kind of know better where I'm cutting, instead of cutting a straight strip and chancing it not fitting because of the radius. Don't have a big radius, but if you look at the front to the back of the boat, it's probably 2 inches high in the middle of the bottom. So wish me luck. Okay, made my marks. It ends up being about 13 3/4 on the stem end and about 13 1/4 on that end. So I'm just gonna, the next one, I'm just gonna cut me a 15-inch strip and then be done with it. This way I don't have to hold the board up on the side of the boat. Kind of drew the stem so I can, you know, jigsaw it a 1/2 inch or so long and then start tacking it in place. Okay, I changed my mind. After I cut the piece 15 inches, I put it up there, I remarked it, I cut it like within a 1/16, but I had to switch my jigsaw blade. I had a 10 or a 12 tooth per inch on there. I had to switch to a 20 because this Luan really splintered up, but the 20 is like beautiful. So the reason I did this too, I left 3/16 of an inch on the front where it's meeting the stem. I'm going to take my plane and put a bevel on there, so that when the two pieces come together, they'll bevel into a nice point. It'll be somewhere nice to glue. Okay, I got the first piece just clamped in place. As you can see, I left about a 1/4 inch sticking out, and I put a nice taper on there, so when I get the second side and the nose, it is going to match up to this one. But I'm going to leave this one, do the other one, and get them matched up in the point before I glue this one. Okay, got the other piece done. Got the fronts both tapered. Everything perfect. Stuff's so much more enjoyable when it all works out. So now we can pop these off, get them glued, and get them clamped in place. The only thing I'm wondering about is how I'm going to get clamps up on the top here, so I might go ahead and clamp the bottom and then either put a nail or a screw every so often on the top. Just try to keep it tight and keep no gaps. And then just like the other thing, we'll take the plane off this last little bit. I tried to keep it as close as I could, but you don't want to get stupid because then you end up short, and then that's no good either. Okay, I got the other two pieces on this end done. They're a little trickier too because you got to make sure you keep this end tight and square. And I do both pieces like I said before, so I can taper the very tip so that when you go to put them together, you get a nice tight joint. So now that I got them both done, I can go ahead and glue. And I've been using a trim nail gun because the 5/8 nails seem to hold it fine, because it's impossible. I never figured out how to clamp up here short of making some blocks, special blocks, and having long bar clamps. I found that if I just keep it tight, use the trim gun as I'm gluing, it turned out fine, as you can see on this other side. I've not trimmed the edges off, but there's no seam or nothing. It's real tight. Okay, I got all the side panels on, the bottom's on. Fronts are glued to the stems. I trimmed all the excess off the bottom with the plane. Got all the corners sanded nice. So now we're gonna flip it over and see what it looks like. Okay, just got it off the strong back, flipped it over, kind of checking out the way everything lined up and how it looks now that I got it flipped over. Some of the stuff didn't meet up the greatest. The shear clamps, it's touching on the back side where I glued, but all these spots where there's a little gap, I didn't want to tweak the wood. So I'm going to take the epoxy resin and mix it up with some like some sawdust flour and make like a thick paste that I'm going to fill in all the gaps. And then you can see like down in the front by the keelson and stuff, I'm going to fill in all them gaps. A little bit on the side. Take my plane, get all the excess off of here, get this all cleaned up, and then I can flip it back over and fiberglass the bottom. My table saw's got a bag underneath it, catches all the sawdust. To make these fillets with the epoxy to fill all my big cracks like in the side in here, not really cracks, just gaps. I want to fill all of them with fillet material, and then you're supposed to do all your seams where everything meets on the sides and the edges. So what I did is I took this 2-liter bottle, I got a piece of stainless screen, I epoxied it in the bottom, so I'm going to scoop up the sawdust and then shake it in here to get all the fine stuff, and that's how I'm going to make my... Okay, this works really well. I fill that little container I made with the screen's on the bottom, about halfway up with the sawdust, and it makes this real fine powdery stuff, which I'm sure that's what they're calling flour. I think you can buy it, but nowhere around here I can buy it. And then this is what it screens out all the big flaky stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. Fill it about half full so you can shake it real good. It's like a giant salt shaker. Shake it into another container, and then that's what we'll mix your fiberglass epoxy with to fill in all your big cracks and fillets. Okay, I got my 2 deck beams on here. Put a little screw and epoxied them in. I've been doing my gap filling, as you can see down the sides. I kind of do it with them nitrile gloves, and it's hard to get it in there with a knife or whatever. You mix that epoxy up with the sawdust flour to where it's about peanut butter thickness, and I've been filling all my big gaps. They call it fillet material. And then I'm going to fill the 2 bulkheads ends with a piece of plywood. I'm going to fill in this hole on each end so I can start my airtight bulkheads. I got all my joints where the plywood are. I put my 2 joints, epoxied them in there, epoxied the 2 side ones, and that's all I've been doing. And then with putting it in with the gloves, kind of smearing that stuff down the sides, you get a bunch of little boogers. So I let that fiberglass epoxy sit up for, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes till it's pretty stiff. Then I take my big 1-inch chisel and just kind of go along and take all the big clinkers off. It'll just help with sanding later. Okay, I got 2 coats of the epoxy on the inside. I didn't put any fiberglass matte, but I was pretty adamant about trying to get around all the edges for the my seal for my bulkheads. So I doubled and tripled it and just kind of looked for gaps, and even when I had it flipped over, I got underneath there so I could do this other edge, and then whenever the edge is on top, you know, it's able to seep down in there a little better. So after a couple times, you can see, I don't know if you can see on the video, but it's got a real good nice layer in my crack. So this thing hopefully will be really airtight and it won't sink if we ever flip over. Okay, before I fiberglass the bottom, I figured I would, I was going to try a little wood burning since this is a welding shop and I just started my wood shop here. The circly one is great off a little mini fan. The little dash lines is actually a drill bit I welded a rod to. And then the other ones are just various shapes, lines, triangles, squares, circles. So I went ahead and did me a little pattern down the side on both sides, and I left it to where once I put the little strip of wood on the outside, after I put the top on, it'll be a 1/2 inch down. I'm hoping it comes through the fiberglass just like everything else. You can see the wood grain, so I figured you'd be able to see this. Give it a little accent because I didn't really want to paint it, but makes it unique. Okay, I flipped it back over before I fiberglass. I wanted to get it on video before I fiberglassed it to see how well it shows up. The heat caused a little bit of smoky damage on the outside, but I just hit it with the sandpaper, left it kind of kind of smoky because it is wood burning, but it's gonna look fine once I get the fiberglass and stuff on there.